In this section, we'll be looking at VOP1 Bolste discovery phase and resource comparison. I will basically walk you through the comparison versus other options that we had. I'll describe a little bit more about Bolste and why it was chosen. We'll go and look at assessments of different categories of options we had when we were assessing for this criteria. For more in-depth analysis on exact comparisons of different softwares and resources within those categories, a documentation will be added onto this presentation, and you can look through that and see more details about different options we had and assessments. You can review and see what the cost restraints were and the reasons why they were opted out. So many of the times, a lot of the resources that were presented were opted out because of cost restraints. So either they were too costly long term, they didn't have the correct modules, they weren't able to meet the needs of the current portfolio. So Bolste was really able to kind of meet most of the needs and was allowed us the ability to be flexible, and most importantly, it did give us a perfect cost constraint with a better quality of modules and resources available to us versus one of the freer products. The compatibility and access was an issue. Many of the free, also keep in mind, many of the free resources available online are actually not free. They're only limited to a certain number of individuals. So a lot of times when you're looking at free HRMS systems or internet systems or collaborative tools, they only allow free users for maybe 5 people per se, or maybe for the first user itself. Or a lot of times they have caps on the spaces and the amount of upload history you have on that database. Sorry, one second. Okay, sorry about that. All right, so the purpose of Bolste. Bolste is to be used as a collaborative method to reduce the multiple pathways such as emails, Go meetings, sheets, and Word documents. It's the most cost-effective and obtainable method to increase transparency and enhance the optimization of the programs and the projects. So one of the limitations I wanted to make light of about Bolste before we really get into anything is that it does not have an integrated HRMS system into it. The options of HRMS systems that we had presented to us or we found online or resourced, they were unfortunately, like I said, limited to, weren't able to tap into due to cost constraints. A lot of times they were charging per employee. So we're looking at uploads and people who are using it. So it worked out to be almost $100 per month, which was quite costly on an organization that's volunteer based and we don't really have a budget. So that wasn't something we could have opted into. G Suites was another thing that was kind of being explored. Unfortunately, with the G Business app program that we have purchased for PMI, there weren't really access to a lot of free HRMS systems. Another thing is when the HRMS systems were totally free, they didn't have the modules that we needed. So we already covered with our VMS system, putting up post job opportunities and obtaining candidates. We were more concerned about tracking internally in the recruitment and onboarding process. So in later stages, you'll see in VOP2 and VOP3, we're looking at systems and hopes to bridge the shortcomings, especially VOP3 will be looking at that. Okay, so the benefits with Bolste. So when we're looking at the comparison and we're looking at the benefits of Bolste, we'll be comparing it to 3 other candidates or groups of individuals that are softwares that are available. G Suite, which is referring to our current one that we're using, so Google Work Apps for people who are familiar with that term. That's the current process that's being used. Then we have cloud-based software. So this is kind of just grouping in any cloud-based software that can be found online with purchase through subscription yearly or by individual. It's cloud-based, which means it's not going to be downloaded on the computer. It's not going to be on a server base, even though there was one option within this to be server-based. That won't be discussed in detail. You can read the documents provided with this presentation and more details about the actual options that we were looking at specifically. Okay, so going back to cloud-based. Cloud-based is basically it'll be HRMS system or even a collaboration method, one of the two. That is online. You would log into it and then you would kind of run your system through that. So we're looking at things, for example, just a list of few that we were looking at. We were looking at Centrifuge, that was one. Z Benefits, we had Web HR. There was also like Igloo, if you're familiar with that. Slacker. There was those are the last few that's named were a couple collaborative measures softwares that were available. Those were options that we were looking at. We were also looking. We actually looked at quite a few. We probably would have said we looked at about maybe 10 or more different solutions when it came to cloud-based before deciding on Bolste. Okay, and then G Suite apps, that is basically, we're looking at the same kind of concept of cloud-based, but G Suite apps is more integrated within G Suite, so Google Work Apps. So with that, when you purchase a Google Work Apps interface, usually you have links to specific business or enterprise softwares and programs that are related or use Google as an interface of a buying power. Like someone would use Amazon per se to sell their product. These individuals chose to use Google's Work Apps to sell their product, which was misunderstood. Was under the impression that some of these, or actually all of these apps that were provided with G Suites would be free. Unfortunately, with the specific product that we purchased from Google Apps, these products are not all free. There was some that were free, but once again, we were limited to the same concept of only specific amount of individuals, only a limited amount of space. With G Suite apps, there was still it wasn't totally integrated. Most of these programs weren't totally integrated into our email or G Suites. We still were redirected to another individual area. So we were basically being directed out of G Suites into a tertiary interface. One of the hopes and the targets of this was to kind of eliminate how many different interfaces you get directed out. We wanted to keep it to one, ideally, worst case scenario, two, or hopefully never three. This is excluding VRMS because VRMS is an internal process. So we're looking at add-ons to VRMS. So we weren't looking to add on more than 3 or 4 interfaces to VRMS. Hopefully we wanted in total maybe 1 add-on to VRMS, if possibly 2. So that's the main reason why we didn't really go with G Suite's apps. So when we're looking at the features that we're kind of assessing by, we're looking at least for the benefits or both really exceeds the most of these competitors, is that we're looking at our team tracking ability. Calendar abilities across the board, but it's a little bit more integrated and kind of fun to play with in both, at least with our system and our constraints of cost. Project management, unlimited space and users, collaborative tools, and the reduction of multiple tools being used. So like saying before in my little blurb about comparing the different products, Bolste was really able to provide a cost-effective measure without us having a limit on space and users. So basically, with one of our license, we can have unlimited space and unlimited users. It has the capability to link and integrate with Google calendars, which allows that linkage from our G Suite's atmosphere to a Bolste. So that really does provide a strength. It has team tracking abilities, which means it has that project management team tracking aspect integrated with it. So you're able to designate individuals to tasks, track their benefits, track their methods of their actual task. You get to basically run a program in a very transparent way and by tracking what's being done. Okay, so comparison. So this is additional comparisons to Bolste. These are things that Bolste has a benefit to. But these are not as strong of an advantage, but still an advantage as it is. We're looking at cost. So like I said, it's very cost effective. It's not obviously free like G Suites, Google Suites, but it also does allow us to have that seamless way of presenting all our data and collaboration tools that G Suites cannot. So G Suites is a very manual, and it doesn't allow you to see transparency. You're using emails, and it's only whoever you email get to see who you're contacting about. When you're doing a sheets analysis, it's only the individuals that are checking and seeing it and manually inputting it that really creates the lack of transparency. Dashboards, Bolste has a beautiful dashboard in the homepage, which allows you to see everything in a snapshot. So you get to see everything that's going on in your organization, program, portfolio, whatever the case is, in one shot. What you can do is there is also an additional video where we did a demo with Bolste. You can view that. He does a much more better job of explaining it to me, to you guys. You can learn and see more about Bolste. I think the main reason why I'm going to comparison is just to let you know why we didn't choose the cloud-based and the G Suite apps. Okay, so that's going back to the previous slide where with cloud-based and G Suite, there's a high variance. We were basically looking at things that could potentially cost us a lot. Even if they were free, there were limiting factors, like I said. Some of them weren't like usable. Most of them were easy to use, but some of them weren't. There was some dashboards, but they didn't have the great accessibility and snapshot that you wanted. And then for the ones that had a stronger one, they costed a lot. Go figure. For the micro tracking, HRMS systems are really what we wanted to look into for our tracking ability. But unfortunately, a lot of them, if they did have the HRMS, it was limited. They didn't have the correct modules. The modules were basically essentially for things that our VRMS system already composes of. So we're looking at VRMS systems. We already do the ability to post online. We're able to obtain candidates. We're already able to look at the information and go and see how they fit into that post. We could search our candidacies within VRMS. Those are things that those HRMS systems are already offering on their basic software packages. We are looking more of the addition of onboarding, tracking, recruitment. So recruitment on our end, so like the ending portion of that hirement. So with those, there's an additional cost, or we can get one or another. It's just missing. A lot of them are adding payroll. We don't really need payroll. You're unable to swap it out. So unfortunately, that's a bit of a hindrance on the reasons why we didn't go with other cloud-based or G Suite apps. So let's look at Bolste. Why did we choose Bolste? Okay, like I said before, big benefit. The cost is amazing. It would really help. But basically, this slide is looking at Bolste as the overall bigger picture of why it could benefit us. So Bolste, it's quite clear why we chose it against other options. But the cost, there is a cost associated, but it's quite limited. The true benefit of Bolste basically is it can help support any of our bigger, larger scale initiatives. It has that program management aspect of it. It allows us to collaborate in a transparent and clear manner. It really does provide us with something that can support our needs in a bigger way. So the biggest issue that I kind of brought up was Bolste lacking that HRMS system. So one way that we can kind of work around Bolste's inability to have an HRMS system integrated into it is we could have multiple different things. There is actually a solution in VOP3 that will help us with bridging that HRMS lack of capability. But just in this slide, we can go a little bit about how Bolste itself can help with onboarding and recruiting. So basically, Bolste, one of the beauties of Bolste is that it allows you to hold Excel and Word documents within the interface. And it allows you to collaborate within Bolste itself without downloading, exiting out onto the actual interface of these documents. What's better about Bolste versus G Suite is that you're able to track your changes. So each individual is able, to collaborate in real time, which means that they can collaborate together, make the changes, and they happen simultaneously. So they're not going to be a one version changes and deletes another. Both of these changes will happen together on the same document. Another beauty about Bolste is that it allows you to have color coding. So when you're doing editing, it's going to give you, each individual who adds onto Bolste will have its own color associated with them. Whenever you do any changes or methods or anything associated with your account or your actions or your task management or your production, it is associated with that color. So let's say we have a document and we're editing it. If Jackie's going to be imaginary Jackie, she is going to make a change. It's going to be in pink because that's the color designated for her. Any changes she does will be in pink, so it's easy to be trackable and see what's done and what her input is. Let's say Tom comes in. He's green. He'll do changes on that same document. At the same time, you'll see Tom doing his responses in green. It holds there and stays there as a draft, and it's able to let us know who's inputting what at what time and when. So on another side of that same dashboard where you see this document and you're doing the changes, you're going to have a little tracking chart where it says at this time this individual did this change, and you'll have key times of when this document was changed. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that you can go back in and I think you can check the older versions, which is it goes back to versions and having that trackability. Also, at the same time, you can have notes and comments. So you can basically have a chat about that discussion. So that's another thing. So I think the biggest add-on benefits of this attribute in Bolst compared to G Suite is that you have the trackability of the colors and who's changing what, and then the versions. You get to see which versions are we tracking. So it's really amazing. Um, let's see. So yeah, that really goes into that. So another kind of advanced hope for Bolste is if this is successful at this level, hopefully with our onboarding process, we can get the VPs into Bolste. And instead of doing the email translations, we can kind of just run these documents real time with the VPs and fill it out and have them go through it, and we can collaborate that way. Also, with our recruitment processes and with our questions, we can use that as an interface, and we can designate a specific area for these VPs and their portfolios that's all for them. It's a page all on for them, and it's just for their candidacies and their projects and their initiatives and managing their goals. So hopefully with that in Bolst, we can create a little space for them where you're able to track, and let's say there was a transfer of portfolio to another individual, everything is there. So all you have to do is go and look through that, and same with those VPs, they just look through that and see what's there. And it's not just looking, accessing the information, you're able to collaborate there as well. You fill out documents, you fill out fulfillments, real-time assessments and processes are all just visible, and it's a great collaboration tool in that aspect. Let's see another aspect I talked about. So yeah, like I said, external task and program management and calendar. So what you can do is with your tasks, you can all put them in the calendar. So the calendar is integrated in the program management aspect of it. So you use the calendar to kind of just have your tasks and you can plop them into the calendar. One way of kind of bridging our G Suites for email aspects is that we can use our Google Calendar into our Bolst. So there's, I think, in VOP, back in VOP3 and VOP4, you'll see us kind of go into a little bit of a solution in that aspect. All right, guys. So I'll see you at the next module or the next presentation, and there we'll be discussing VOP2, so VRMS system.